We're going to call the meeting to order. First, bills and manifest are going around. I don't believe we have any need for a non-public session, do we? Gary, are we good? We're good, sorry. All set with a non-public session? No need in the beginning here? Nope. Okay. So, first thing we'll do is opening public comment. You guys are all veterans of these meetings, you know the rules. Nothing? All right. Any board members like to take this opportunity to address the board?
I would.
Okay.
I have a statement that I would like to read,
Good.
and I will submit it for the minutes. I would like to clarify my reasons for not voting for the school budget last week. My opinion has not changed from last year, but surprisingly, this requires revisiting. I did not revisit this during budgeting this year because the board has made their preference clear, and my opinion did not change that last year. I assumed it would not change it this year either. I did not vote for the budget because there are two line items that remain in the budget, full-day kindergarten and the full-time curriculum director, that have gone on warrant articles and been voted down by the majority of residents. I was elected to this board to vote as a representative of this town, and I will not support a budget that includes line items that this town has repeatedly said it does not support. Last year, this board voted 3-2 to put those items into the budget despite these votes. The board may claim that while residents may have voted down the warrant articles, they voted for the budget with those line items in it, and that this is clear evidence that the town must therefore support them. I believe that is false, and that we all know it. The only reason last year's budget passed, despite having line items in it that the town voted against, was because we made our budget less than the default budget. People chose the lesser amount. We made no such effort this year, and those line items remain in the budget. I think we're in danger of having our budget voted down this year as a result. In addition, I'm very concerned about the actions of this board with regard to the curriculum director position. Last year, we had a part-time curriculum director who was motivated, intelligent, professional, and doing excellent work. She was part-time, but she was getting things done, and I felt she was moving us in the right direction. And despite this board repeatedly saying that we need more consistency, it voted for another upheaval and started over again with yet another new curriculum director. No offense to our current curriculum director. I'm talking about the position, not the person. That being said, I was very sorry to see Dr. Kavanaugh go, partly because I was impressed with the work she was doing, but also because it demonstrates that our actions as a board are not aligning with our words. If we really mean what we say about promoting consistency in education, in our curriculum, and with our administration, we need to start doing a better job. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else who will address the board this time? Going on. All right, I'll take this opportunity to take my 3 minutes. The time for deliberating over the budget over the past 2 or 3 months is when we were deliberating over the budget. We went over this budget line by line at least 5 or 6 times. If you had a problem with some of those lines, that was the time to bring that up. It's disrespectful to the townspeople and to the other board members to not bring up the concerns and just make assumptions about things. And then at the very end, just try to do your best to vote the budget down instead. That's basically a classic case of what you did is deliberating in bad faith. And it's not an ethical thing to do, and I'm disappointed. If you have problems with the budget, let's go through line by line, bring those up then, and not take advantage of the situation of having 2 board members absent to prevent moving forward with the budget at all. Especially considering the amounts we're talking about add up to approximately 1% of the budget. So 99% of the budget we agree with, or maybe we don't, I don't know because you didn't say anything. So if we agree with 99% of the budget and you have a problem with 1% of the budget, to vote down the whole budget for that, to me seems ridiculous. Okay.
So
We're
I
going
would
to
like
close
a
the
chance
public
to
comment
speak
at this time. Nope, sorry, you had your turn. Moving on to approval of minutes.
Motion to approve minutes from
November 30th?
Yep. Is that a second?
Second. Sorry, I was just finishing it.
Any discussion? The minutes of November 16th.
Oh, 16.
16th, we're going to 16th first.
November,
and then
I'm
30th?
sorry, which one did you say?
We just said the 30th, because that's the one I saw, but we have to do the 16th.
That's fine, we can do the 30th.
No, we can do the 16th first.
You made the motion for the 30th, for the 16th, let's do, I mean, the 30th, let's do the 30th. Any discussion on these? All in favor, approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? I'm sorry, I'll abstain from that, I said.
Abstain.
Yep, abstain, I'll abstain.
Oh, which one?
This is the
was it?
30th, the
Oh, the
one
30th,
pager.
that was,
You were there.
I was
You
there for
voted
that
no,
one.
remember?
I was not there for the other one.
Right.
Motion to approve the November 16th
I'll look.
public, yes, minutes.
Second. Any discussion on these? These are the ones in the packet, starting on page 4. All in favor of approving these minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think we're all, everybody knows unanimous. All right, I do have one, Dr. Godomsky handed out. These are the minutes of November 2nd. They're not the full minutes. It starts on page, it's the one starting at the top, says Wednesday before Thanksgiving, if the school's still under modified schedule. There's been asked, I've been asked to clarify one of these motions. So in the, let's see, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth paragraph, the one that starts with Shane Wells moved, I don't know if everybody's on the same page here. I made a motion, and it says, to grant the union's request for additional personal day off. My intent in looking at the tape, I kind of, I said it, but it's hard to tell exactly what I was talking about. But my intent was to grant the union's requests, as both for the teachers' union and the paraprofessional union. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend these minutes to change, grant the union's request, we move the apostrophe to the other side of the S, and add an S to requests, which was the intent, and I think what the board had agreed on at the time. It was just recorded.
What page?
It's on,
I would certainly not vote for that.
it's on this page here.
It's what I handed out.
Okay.
We had no request from the other union. As a matter of fact, I went home that night and said to my wife, geez, I'm really surprised that your union wasn't represented at the board.
We did have a request from that union.
Not that I saw.
Okay.
I have to agree with Tim on this. I just feel like because I looked at the letter that was handed out to us that night.
Yep.
And it only says the NTA in the letter,
does,
in the
yep.
note.
It does, but I looked at the
No
tape
discussion
today.
about the other union, none
I
whatsoever.
looked at the tape today, and when I made the motion, I said staff, and I said the unions when I made the motion.
Well, I don't,
I mean, that was, the motion that was actually made is that's what I said, but, so that's why, I mean, looking at this, it looks like it's only the one union, and with the letter, I understand that, but that wasn't the intent of the motion at the time. Because they both did make the request. I mean, maybe only one of the letters came to us that night, but in the negotiations with them,
and it's not that I'm saying that I want to deny the paraprofessionals this, it's just that looking at the letter and the way it was written,
that was a
and
that was a
who
letter.
spoke that night.
That was a letter from Mrs. Dow only, yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
and it says NTA in it.
It does, yeah.
We've never discussed that. It would be much better to just make a new motion.
We could do that.
And make it clean.
We could do that.
'Cause I certainly did not feel we were talking about two unions that night.
Yeah, I did, so maybe it was just a
So
miscommunication.
it would be much cleaner just to make a new motion, vote on it, and go with what the motion is.
All right, you guys want to do that? We can do that.
Yes,
Fourth paragraph.
yeah.
Fifth paragraph.
Arguing he said, she said, a month later, it makes no
Opposed
sense
to
to me.
it. So opposed to it.
What's that?
Nothing, I just, I was making a motion.
So,
Would you like me to make the motion? Okay, well, I'll withdraw this and I'll make a motion that, let's see if I can do this right. That we grant the union's requests for an additional personal day off due to the busing situation.
I guess I just want to put it, maybe we should just say NTA and.
NTA, okay, sure. Yep. So
NTA
so
and
grant the
NESPA.
NTA and
NESPA.
NESPA's requests for an additional personal day off
Right.
for the month of November's busing situation. All right. Is that a second then?
Second, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
All right, any discussion on this?
So it was my understanding, yes, I do. So it was my understanding in the discussion we have, and I have not listened to the tape, and if the new motion passes, then there's no sense in my doing so, is that we were talking about, and it reflects that in part of what we ended up tonight, that if we put it off to the following week, then we would give them an extra day off. And if not, if we went back the week of Thanksgiving, we would not. And that's what I thought the motion was. Now, I voted against the motion either way, and, but I'm just saying that it was certainly, my understanding of the discussion was that if the busing continued, the adjusted busing continued through Thanksgiving into next week and beyond, then we would give them that extra personal day.
And I think that was when Lauren stood up and said that's not what she had discussed with her
Right.
members, and that's not what she had discussed with Keith.
Right.
I think that's why the motions got all messed up, is because, according to this, they're asking for an additional personal day. They're not asking for it, whether it was, whether we started or stopped whenever, that's what they were asking for, and that's when Lauren stood up and clarified.
I'm against a personal day anyway. I think it's an unfair expense to the taxpayers for those 2 extra weeks or whatever it was, but
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 3-2. All right, thank you. Sorry to interrupt our regular business with that. We also have, sorry, one more thing, non-public. Yeah. On page 12, we do have non-public minutes for November 16th.
Motion to approve the non-public minutes from the 16th, November 16th.
Second, any discussion on these? All in favor of approving these minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain? 3 with 1 abstention, sorry, 4 in favor. Okay, that's all the minutes. So we're back to our proposed budget, final review of that.
Yeah, I handed out your budget binders, that you have all of the materials that have been sent forward to the Budget Committee. In the past years, we have tried our best to have 5 votes registered on the budget, 5 votes registered on the default budget, and 5 votes registered on each of the warrant articles. So I ask if the board is willing to vote on each of those tonight, so we can register all 5 votes.
So, this has already been sent to the Budget Committee, so what we would be voting on then is just whether we recommend these numbers or not,
Right,
right? We're not
Right.
finalizing it, it's already been finalized.
right.
Yeah, I can't do anything about it.
so how are you getting around the fact that we voted on it already,
I called Gordon Graham, and
the lawyers?
and he had
I asked him to,
he
after
had
the vote.
he had said that it was not a problem to revote. We loosely follow Robert's Rules of Orders, but the board can choose to do it any way they so choose. If they want to suspend that and revote, they can do that. And there's no, I looked at your policies, your B policies, and there's no policies that say how you run the meeting, so you could do that if you choose to.
So the rules that we followed in this town anyway, and I don't know whose rules they are, is that once a vote is taken, the only way to reopen that vote is if a member of the winning side. So you're telling me that that's not true?
That's correct. That's what I got from the attorney.
Yeah, okay.
So
And-
Scott could call a revote if he wanted to, even though he was on the losing side.
Yep. So I'm just wondering.
And in fact,
That's not
in
what I thought was the fact.
in past years, this board has revoted, if there, I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before, but when you've had 4 members, you have revoted to get that 5th vote in there.
We've done it a number of times.
I know you have.
Only if a member of the winning side asks for it. I'd like to see that. Okay.
So it
That's
just,
pretty interesting.
I'm just bringing it forward for your consideration, and it would be cleaner that way, sending it forward to the budget.
Is that a select board?
So we don't have a motion yet, so why don't we
Enough.
start with that?
It's been every board I've ever been
Come on,
on.
guys.
Motion to, do I have to reopen it, or just?
Well, I think we just,
motion to
it's,
approve the bond?
I'm not sure what the motion was before. The motion before was to finalize it, but I don't think we really need to finalize it anyway. This is the information from the SAU that is being sent to the budget committee.
So recommend.
We need to decide whether we
You're
recommend it
basically
or not.
recommending to the budget committee is what you're doing.
So my motion is to recommend the budget, the Northwood 2019 proposed budget of $11,830,426 to the budget committee.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All in favor of recommending this number?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? For a 3-2 recommendation. Recommend for 3-2.
And do we do the same with the default?
Yep.
Motion to recommend to the budget committee the 2018-19 default budget of $11,708,441.24.
Actually, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
The default budget, we actually set ourselves, so we're not recommending that to the budget committee, right?
Yeah, the
We're
default-
actually setting the
Oh,
default
sorry.
The
budget.
default is the default, so.
Okay.
Right. So I think we're just approving the default budget.
Yep.
A motion to approve the default budget, sorry.
No,
You've already done
It's
that.
already done.
Oh, we already
You've
did
already
it.
done that. So the same with Article 3 and Article 4, you've got 3 votes
Oh, yes.
registered right now.
So, okay, so for those, it might make sense to reopen those, so we can put 5 votes on them. So we can send to the budget committee, right? Or what about Article 2? Or is that the one we just did?
Article 2 you just did.
That's true.
Motion to recommend to the budget committee, Article number 3, to raise and appropriate up to $10,000 to be placed in the capital building improvement capital reserve fund from end-of-year reserves. Undesignated fund plus surplus.
Second. Mr. Wills, seconded.
Did I say 10,000? I think I did.
Yes, you did.
Any discussion on these, on this one, sorry? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? So recommended 5-0. And Article 4, if you please.
Motion to recommend Article 4, to the budget committee, shall the Northwood School District vote to change the purpose of the existing matching grant capital reserve fund established on July 1, 2016 to the Building and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of maintaining and replacing and improving the school district's building, etc.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Recommended 5-0. Thank you.
Quote's on the right place in that one.
Does the board mind if I confer with the budget committee representatives in the audience to make sure that there's nothing else they would like from us at this time? That'd be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think-
Are we good?
I haven't heard anything.
We're good? Okay. See you on Saturday then?
That's 9 o'clock, right?
Okay.
Starting ideally properly.
How many copies do you think that we should make? I don't want to short them, but I don't want extra
Yeah, I know.
100 copies either.
Although, the copies that you would make for Saturday.
If nothing
Would those
changes.
be utilized?
If
and
nothing changes.
Deliberative if nothing changes?
So 50?
Yeah, I would do more than that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, maybe 30. The hall won't hold more than that, really. So, I don't think we've got 30 chairs. I'm just saying.
Okay.
They're down at the other building.
Let you choose between 30 and 50.
All right, I think we got it. Thanks.
Your discretion.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Rooney.
Good evening.
My report starts on page 13. Skip to the second paragraph because the supporting documentation for the first paragraph is on the next page. Mr. Byrne and I attended the monthly New Hampshire Association of Special Ed Administrators meeting in November. It had a significant conversation statewide across the room about what meets the definition of specialized instruction, so we can help our IEP teams determine that upon initial identification. We've been attending IEP meetings at the Northwood School and providing consultation to the staff. You've got some Northwood schools at Easter Seals and CB&A. Have some Northwood students attending meetings there. I've been in court over the past month on behalf of some of your students, and your English speakers of other language roster is complete, and the materials have been ordered for the spring administration. Your census is below, and I've marked that with increases or decreases from the previous month. If you turn to page 14 and 15 for the board members who were here in 2013, the year before, your data with the state necessitated that you got selected for focus monitoring, is what it was called then, and now it's compliance and improvement monitoring. If you'll notice, the state has made an error and predicted into the future, according to the grid on page 14, that you're going to be in compliance this year and next year. I've alerted them to their error. I know, right? So that chart should, if you look where it says 2018-19, that should say 16-17, and below that 15-16, 14-15, 13-14. Other than the error that was made in the state report, when you get zeros on those indicators, as I've said before, that is a good thing. If you had an accumulation of 1s, 2s, or 3s, you most likely would get selected for compliance and improvement monitoring. If you take a look at that erroneously labeled chart, you can see that from 13-14 on, you haven't had any compliance issues with the state, and therefore, you were not selected for monitoring this year. Any questions? Okay. That's it.
Anybody have any questions for the assistant superintendent? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go into the principal's report. Ms. Young.
Our report begins on page 16. We started off this time with a sampling of all the great things that happen in our building every day. One thing I really want to point out is our teachers are really demonstrating a lot of frequent use of effective practices and interest and willingness to improve their practice and increase rigor. So throughout here, we have reference to establishing really clear, measurable, rigorous learning goals, providing frequent opportunities for kids to practice their skills, all kids, not just the kids who raise their hands, writing across the curriculum, a variety of types of writing, essay writing, quick writes, poetry, and teachers just really being open to suggestion and asking questions about how they can do what's best for kids. So we definitely want to celebrate that. Our kindergartners are really coming into full bloom in their full day setting. They're starting to write their first sentences and read their first words, and it's just really exciting to see the learning that's happening in the kindergarten wing.
Is that because it's full-time?
One might surmise that. We, also, I want to congratulate our staff on celebrating a sense of community and trying to promote a sense of community. We've recently reinstituted monthly breakfasts that each wing kind of takes a role in putting on. And staff members noted that bus drivers don't get to participate in those because they're driving the bus. And so a bunch of staff members organized donations for baskets that were given to the bus drivers. And it happened right around the transition from the original 5 to the Northwood specific. And so they made baskets for everybody. So kudos to them. Also trying to get out into the community
as much as our Route 4 location will allow us to walk places, the Meadows is really the Meadow is really the best place we can walk to. So around Halloween, we had first grade go over and sing some Halloween songs. That was very well received, and we're looking forward to doing that again around the winter holidays coming up. And then we also had our second annual first and second grade feast. Second graders made bread. First graders made cranberry sauce. Everybody brought in donations for fruit salad. Dr. Godomsky happened to be on the building that day and got to enjoy that with the kids as well, so that was great to see. So there's a lot of fantastic things happening in our building every day. Your turn.
Good evening, everybody. So the after-school STEM program had its second meeting today. We got the parts in from the donation we received from TurboCam, so there'll be some new exciting stuff that's coming in. We have 11 students this time, which is, I believe, 3 more than last year. Some returning and some new, which excited me because some people came back to kind of expand on their knowledge, and some others wanted to get some new stuff, which will be really awesome. I know the first thing they'll be working on is an AM radio, which is pretty exciting. Some of the tools we got were soldering irons, so they'll be able to solder, and we got some new bread boxes to kind of put on the S3 robots, so the S3 robots can be more complicated, and there'll be more coding associated with that. So I really look forward to see what those kids are going to do. I love that kind of stuff anyway, so I'm going to be down there watching what they do. And then we had, on November 17th, we had the Harlem Rockets come in and visit. Headmaster Smith was kind enough to include us in that because they went to play a C, B, and A, I believe, later that night. They're tall, and so everybody noticed how tall they were, especially with me. I think one guy was at least 8 inches taller than me, so stuck out quite a lot. They were not shy, and our students were very welcoming, and it was fantastic. Matter of fact, we had 2 of them play in first grade in Miss Bulldog's class, and this little girl was extremely precocious, and it was hilarious to watch her try to follow suit with what the professionals are doing. So it was really great to have him, and everybody treated him really well. It was quite adorable, actually. So.
And there's pictures included.
Oh, yes.
Not great quality, but.
That one to the left is that young lady who did not shy away at all. She was not camera shy. And then there's a picture of me and Ms. Helton and Mrs. Detrude with the Harlem Rockets.
And if you want to see a better version of the pictures, they're on our Twitter feed. The next topic is the gym lights. I feel a little bit more like I know what I'm talking about tonight, which is always a good thing. I talked with Tom. He said that the bulbs were last replaced about 10 years ago. So it's time. The plan moving forward, what we've budgeted for next year is to replace the bulbs with LED bulbs and also to replace the ballasts, which my understanding is sort of like a motor, and that's all I know. And we talked about, the lift issue and whether or not we could, procure our own. He said that the contractor that would come in, their liability insurance would likely require that they provide their own lift that was covered under that. So the question for the board is still, do we want to replace them this year as they go? We have one out now. It's possible that that's the only one. Or do we want to kind of wait and see?
Well, the plan was to put it in the budget, right?
It is in the budget.
It's in the
Yep.
budget. Is it over the budget amount? Is it the same as the default, or is it different? Do we put more money into that line this year?
It'll be the facilities line, right?
Yeah, so that line is the regular amount that we budget for plus,
Plus the second amount?
yeah.
Okay.
But the money that he's asking for is just to change the bulb, it's not to change the ballast.
I think what he's suggesting is redo the whole light now while we're,
Okay, so he would have to have
The
the
new
company
gym or
come
old
in.
gym?
The new one up
new
here.
gym.
There's a bulb that's
But
out.
we didn't change them 10 years ago. It was built 10 years ago. What do we have, a 10-year bond?
15-year one. Yeah, the
So,
15-year one.
The changing, I don't remember that at all.
I wasn't here 10 years ago.
And
so don't know.
I have no problem personally with changing light bulbs, especially if we're gonna go with an energy saver of some sort, and there's a lot of them out there. There is just some absolutely beautiful LED light bulbs, fluorescent light bulbs out there. They're much brighter, much better, and use like a third the electricity. have we looked into that? But I have never heard of changing ballasts until they go bad. I've worked in many huge box stores. We've never changed ballasts. We do change light bulbs periodically, especially when they come up with an energy saving.
I think what they're looking for, the direction is, there's a bulb out right now in the corner that's not a hazard, is my understanding. Do we pay this $600?
$300.
$300 to change it this year? Or they've put this money in the budget next year to change everything?
Right. That's already been,
And
we've
wait.
already decided on that. I mean, that's already in there, in the budget. It's just,
Right. So that's the question, is do we spend the $300 to change a light bulb?
for what, 6 months or something like that, yeah.
I guess,
It could be 6 months or a whole year.
Right, right.
So we have in the budget, how much to change everything?
7,500.
Oh,
that includes the ballast and,
That's you?
I guess, the lift rental.
So, I mean, I think how we left it so far, unless somebody has a different opinion on this, is that I think we're gonna skip spending the money to replace the one light bulb if it's not a safety issue. But we can change that if people want.
I just did 2 games in there and did not notice any lights out, so.
Right, so it's,
I would say we wait and see if the budget passes.
yeah.
I assume if more bulbs go out, it would be $300 to change 2 light bulbs? Because the lift is the cost, isn't it?
$350.
Yeah. The lift is the bulk of the cost, yes.
Right, the lift is the cost. So if another one goes out and it gets to be dark in the gym where you can't play safely,
how tall are they?
Jim?
Pretty high. I don't know, 30 feet? 20 feet maybe?
I'm just wondering, I mean,
Probably
we have an
30 feet.
incredibly tall
Janitor.
A-frame ladder down at Yup, where we have to get up to the,
it's probably
Yeah.
30 feet.
30 feet, yeah.
I guess I'll go in and look when I leave.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that for now and see what happens. And I provided some information on lockers. I see that later on in the agenda. Do you want to talk about that now, or?
We can wait. If you want, it's on the agenda. We'll do it there, I guess.
All right, well, don't get too excited because I do have an addendum. I'm not done yet. So I wanted to bring information about the proposed 8th grade trip for you. So Mrs. Clemens, the 8th grade advisor, contacted I have a typo, that's the worst. Contacted 3 companies, Explorica, EduTrips, and the National 4-H Conference Center. So there is some comparison data on there for you in terms of the cost per kid and the amenities provided. My recommendation is to go with the 4-H Conference Center. It's the middle priced one. It's not the cheapest, but it's also not the most expensive. The reason being that the facility itself seems to be the most kid-friendly place for them to stay. The other 2 would require kids to share beds, which was not a really popular thing last year, as you may recall.
I can attest to that.
The 4-H facility provides bunk beds for each kid, so there would be 4 kids in a room, but each kid would get their own bed. It also provides recreation activities that are just for kids, and the chaperones, obviously, that are with them, so it's not a public hotel, per se, that anybody can stay at. They also provide some informational, educational type workshops at the facility itself, so they can extend their learning not just when they're on the tour, but they'll also have the option of some workshops in the building. One other thing that's cool is they have a on-site restaurant, and it is a all-you-can-eat buffet format, which I think for 8th graders is a really good financial consideration.
They're hungry.
They're undercharging us then, I'll tell you that.
So this fee per child does factor in the cost of chartering a bus, because the transportation is not included with 4-H, so we would have to charter a bus separately, so that expense has been factored into the cost, as have the 6 or 7 chaperones that will be going. So that $660 is an estimate because we don't know exactly how many kids are going at this point, but it should be somewhere in that ballpark. So that is our recommendation. The schedule would be they would be there for 3 nights, so they'd leave here early Wednesday morning, spend most of the day on the bus, get there late afternoon, do some sightseeing type things in that night. Then they'd have a full day there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then they'd get on the bus Saturday night around 9 or 10, and have the trip back be overnight. So they'd hopefully sleep on the bus on the way back, at least for a portion of it.
You're going, right?
Mr. IA is going, yes.
There'll be plenty of sleeping, I'm sure, yes.
So then they could have Sunday to recover.
I'll recover on Sunday, is that what you're alluding to?
Be
Yes.
back at work bright and early Monday morning.
I'll be there.
This is the place that they used a few years ago?
Yes. Yep, and you can Google it. If there's pictures on the website, and it gives you sample itineraries, and it looks like a great experience for kids.
Yeah, they had a great
They plan an
experience.
itinerary for you and give you different options that you can select. You can,
Yes, so there's sort of a blend of like a set itinerary, and then there's a couple places where they can, where as a group, we can choose what we want our students to see.
this is fantastic. Thank you for putting this together. I'm really glad to see it.
Yeah, and I really give Mrs. Clemens the credit for the data here.
This is fantastic.
Well done.
And I give Mr. Alford credit for going and not whining about it too much.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the National 4-H 8th grade, or to use National 4-H, however you want it. How do you want the
I'd say to
National 4-H,
accept the recommendation. How about
okay.
that?
The National 4-H Conference Center quote? That be the
And-
right way?
and the dates.
$660 for June 6th through the 9th for the 8th grade class trip
For an estimate of $660?
Per student.
Per student?
per student estimate.
It is an estimate.
It is.
So I just want to, we should put that in the motion so that
Estimate
we're,
of 660.
yeah.
Second.
Any
How many are
discussion?
you expecting to go?
June 6th.
No, how
Oh,
many?
how many? Mrs. Clemens based this estimate on 40 students going. But now that we know the particulars, we'll put that out to the families and,
Did you ask why the big difference in free chaperones? So one is every 5, get a free chaperone. The one we're going is every 30, so we're going to get 1 free chaperone.
right.
Just wonder why that big difference. Is that something you could negotiate with them and get an extra one? Be nice to have a,
Perhaps. I can ask.
that's quite a big difference between,
Is that factored into the price as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Their fee per child, though, is a lot less, too. It's $100 less than the less expensive one.
Right, so probably evens out.
well, it's eaten up in the transfer to child.
Yeah.
The others are 0. They're just doing their math different. But they've all come out fairly close. A big part of the difference in the other two seems to be every 5 travelers, you get a free chaperone, and the EDU is every 10 travelers, you get 1, so that would give us 4. And in the end, it's every 30 on the national 4-H. But I'm just pointing that out. I just wonder if you could point that out to them and see if they go up 1.
We can ask.
Can't hurt.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that is all we have for you tonight.
Do you have any other questions for Mrs. Young? Seeing none, we'll move on to the curriculum director's report.
My report starts on page 18. The report card committee actually met yesterday afternoon. Teachers reviewed, or the committee members reviewed, a draft of the English language arts section of the report card, grades K through 5. We did discuss habits of mind and the positive habits that successful students engage in. Teachers were given a draft of those habits today, along with a draft of positive behaviors. We had talked about creating 2 sections, one for the cognitive skills we want students to engage in, like critical thinking, reflecting on their learning and asking questions, and a separate section for behaviors, such as showing respect for self and others. So teachers were given that draft today. I'm working on drafts of the ELA sections for grades 6, 7, and 8, along with a draft of the math sections for K through 8. And we are hoping to discuss some of that in January when we meet again. I've been looking at the social studies curriculum, and I've had discussions with Ms. Young. I know that from what I can tell, the board may have approved a draft of the social studies topics for each grade level back in 2012. It's time to look at those again and really update that. Many schools have a cycle where each year one of the 4 core subjects is reviewed with the assistance of a committee, so there's a continuous review process. That hasn't happened in social studies for a number of years, and given the fact that the literacy standards are tied to reading informational text, the social studies units along with the science units are both places where connections between those academic areas and literacy needs to be tightened. So we want to make sure that we have not just the topics down, but also the materials. We want to make sure that teachers have high-quality informational text that they can use to teach their students and help their students get to those that high level of literacy that we want them to be at, so that they're ready for college and career. So that's the plan, is to review that probably next year. Get a committee together, review that, and put money in the budget for the 1920 school year. We also had 2 visits to other schools this past month. There was a visit to the Summersworth Middle School with 2 middle school teachers, and another visit to the Oyster River Middle School with 2 other teachers. Mr. Alfred accompanied me to the Summersworth Middle School, and Ms. Young accompanied us on the trip to Oyster River. And that was really to give some of our newer teachers at the middle school level an opportunity to observe their peers. Like, I know when I was a middle school teacher, it was definitely helpful to be able to engage in collaborative conversations with my colleagues, to get ideas about how to teach my content area effectively. And where we have several teachers who are newer to the profession, it's difficult for them because they don't necessarily have the opportunity to engage in those conversations with peers at the same grade level. So I think that having those opportunities to observe other classrooms and observe other middle schools gave them, I think, a positive experience and some ideas that they can pull back here. So I think that was good. I continue to work on academic coaching. I think as teachers become more familiar with me, I'm able to push into classrooms where teachers are opening their doors and inviting me in, which is a positive sign for me, again, to see that continue. One teacher was looking for some ideas on how to engage her students, so I did a couple of demonstration lessons, and we had a conversation to debrief about the strategies that I used and what she would be interested in using in her, or incorporating into her professional practice going forward. And I've gotten some positive feedback from the 1st and 2nd grade teachers on the purchase of Rec and Recs. A Rec and Rec is similar to an abacus, but with 2 racks of 10 beads, 5 red, 5 white, and they're really used to help students understand numbers and addition and subtraction within 20, which really lays down the foundation for understanding addition and then multiplication going forward. So if you don't, for example, understand addition, it's very difficult to grasp multiplication. It's a way to help the school align instruction vertically from K2 to the 3rd grade, which is critical because that's when the state testing begins. So we want to make sure that our students are getting the solid foundation that they need in numeracy, and that they are able to enter 3rd grade more or less on grade level. So this was one strategy. They had been talking about the fact that students had been struggling with some of this basic addition, or they want to make sure that everybody is prepared. And we want to make sure that everybody is reaching their potential. So it was good to hear that. And I've co-facilitated a mentor meeting with Jude Chavette, who's my peer, another curriculum director at Nottingham. So we're also working on the mentoring program, making sure that everyone is getting the support they need to enter the profession and hopefully become established. We know that what happens a lot of times is that teachers who do not have that mentoring opportunity, it isn't uncommon for about 50% of teachers to leave the profession within their first 5 years. So we want to make sure that we are providing them with the support that they need so that we're able to retain the talent that we have. And finally, I've created and actually sent out a schedule of professional development opportunities that will be sent out in the spring, or that will begin in the spring, including a book group and several topics that teachers are interested in, such as developing a better understanding of the state's math standards and the state's literacy standards, along with strategies that we could use to engage students. And also, how do we develop performance tasks, which are a form of assessment that are probably more real world than a pencil and paper test like most of us took. So all of that will be offered. And I hope to see what teachers are interested in.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about curriculum?
I do.
Yeah.
Should we as a board, I know it's not something we have to think about right tonight, but should we as a board put the every 4 years, once you start bringing the curriculum to us, is that the curriculum director's job or the administration's to say every 4 years that the board should be like reapproving it or whatever, or is that something that we should, as a board, should be putting on our timeline to make sure that it's being followed up with and everything? If 2012 was the last time something was brought forward, then, you know, if it was on the board timeline or something, the board could have been saying, hey, you know, this should have been looked at, you know, 3 years before that or whatever, you know what I mean?
I think it's normally something that's done, unless, Dr. Domsey, if you correct me, that's normally something done by a curriculum director.
Okay.
And then you would receive the periodic updates in terms of what the curriculum director is working on.
Okay.
Yeah, typically the curriculum director, along with building administration, will develop a rotation of curriculum revisions, development, implementation, and then bring that forward to the school board just as an FYI. This is the cycle, that way the school board has an opportunity for feedback, and you'll see exactly what stage the curriculum development is in.
So, we'll be seeing something along those lines in the near future then, schedule? I mean, you mentioned doing social studies
I can certainly
soon.
create one. Right now, we've been working on implementing the new math program. Next year, the focus needs to be science, because we have the next generation science standards coming out, or they're out, but we need to align to them. After that, social studies, I think, will be an area of critical concern, given the fact that the school has purchased the Wonders Literacy Program. I think literacy is pretty well set, but we need to make certain, again, that the literacy standards that are related to informational text are tied to the new social studies curriculum.
Okay.
So that would be the focus for 1920.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, that we purchased a program. That doesn't mean that we have a curriculum. A program and a curriculum are two different things.
So the previous curriculum director did create curriculum documents, and most of the teachers are following those with that particular program as the primary resource for instruction.
Okay.
They're certainly pulling in other resources as they feel appropriate.
Okay.
But overall, the sense that I'm getting after speaking with teachers and engaging with them in PLC work is that teachers are feeling much more comfortable with literacy than they are with mathematics this year, given the fact that many teachers are implementing the new math program.
Right. Okay, but there is like a curriculum that's at least started, and the program is part of that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So just for information, I was looking it up as we were talking. policy IGA does say the curriculum will be placed on a cycle of 5-year review, and so should be brought to the board at least every 5 years for consideration and review by the board, so, I think making a schedule for that is probably the very first thing.
Okay.
If we need social studies this year and then next year or something else, fine. If we do one subject a year, we'd almost be there, right? Something along those lines.
Social
Social
studies not.
studies is the only one in all the years I've been here that has been approved. And I disagree, and it's a minor thing, but I remember that very well, and I was very pleased that it was a wonderful curriculum. Finally, we had a curriculum for a subject. The teachers at the time did an absolutely wonderful job, and I don't believe we approved a draft. I think we approved it.
Okay. In that case, maybe it does make sense to have a different one, but yeah, we should, I mean, like our turnover of computers, right? We should have a plan where every year we're gonna do a subject or two. And,
Would the board want me to have that available for the next meeting?
a plan for it, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Yep. Everybody in agreement with that? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I guess to that point too, though, if you're saying that there's an English curriculum out there, did we approve that?
So this
Only
year, it's
curriculum
still in
all the
draft
time that-
form.
yeah.
Okay.
So the
Done
intent,
is social studies, that's it.
so the intent that Dr. Kavanaugh and I had talked about was last year, we created those documents. This year, we're trying them out and, considering them to be working documents, making adjustments as we go. And then in June, we'll have finalized them and bring them to the board at that time.
Great work, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, I'll start on page 20, personnel report. First is a resignation of Lisa Feldson as from the NEC program.
Motion to approve.
Accept.
Approve. Resignation of Lisa from the NEC program.
With regret.
With regret, yeah, sorry, I'm not on that page.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? Anything to be worried about here, or is this just, it didn't fit?
Didn't fit.
All right, all in favor?
But I think you should look at her letter.
Yeah, I did read it.
Right. It's not the first one.
The next is nomination of Elena Metzger as girls B basketball coach, and under separate cover, I handed out her application materials just to give you a little bit more background.
Motion to approve Elena Metzger as the girls' B basketball coach
Second.
for $1,200.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I handed out a separate notification, just correspondence for a notification of a retirement in 3 years. So just for your information.
Very sad.
And starting on page 23, you've got the statistical report from Co-Brown. I'll just very quickly go through a couple of highlights. I won't read the whole thing to you. But on page 25, it's got the statistics for town enrollment, so you can see all of that. We've got some honor roll students listed on page 26, the number for high honors, honor roll, and the total enrollment. So you can see how our students are doing from freshman through senior year. Interesting, on page 27, looking at grade distribution in math, English, and science. And when I look at that, there are certainly some highlights. It's nice to see our advanced algebra honors students really doing well. The algebra CP students, we've got a lot more kids toward the kind of middle of the road. But you can see the grade distribution is throughout all of the subject areas.
Can I back you up one page?
Sure.
On page 26, the honor roll students, this is just Northwood students?
Yes.
Right, okay, so I just want to say that it looks great that, looks like half of our enrollment of Northwood students are at least on honor roll or higher honor roll in every grade. That's great. I just want to point that out.
Yep, they're doing well, our freshmen are. If you look on page 28, you'll see the reading inventory results, and if you look at proficient and advanced, you've got about 77% of your students that have tested proficient or advanced. You can see on the next page, the total in Co-Brown is 79%. So our students are right there as far as the number achieving proficiency on the initial reading. As we move into page 30 and 31, bless you, you'll have your science testing for kneecap, and then moving into your SAT testing as well. And then some other information on the school, what they're doing after graduation on page 32, as well as some of the colleges I believe that's not just Northwood students, that's all of Co-Brown seniors, that's some of the places where they're getting accepted. On page 35, it starts a transition survey. Some interesting information on this. This is a way for us to look at how we're doing and how well prepared our students are, or how well they think they're prepared. Really some pretty good feedback from the students in the areas of math and science and social studies. It looks like in language arts and reading, certainly they feel like we could give them a little bit more assistance. And then in some specials area of world language and computers, technology, certainly they're stating there that we can certainly provide them with more experience in preparation. Page 36 and 37 are some of the activities that our kids are doing, and it's really nice to see the variety, not only the variety of activities that they're involved in, but the numbers of kids that are actually involved as freshmen and as they go through. That's really nice to see. And then there are other activities on 38 and 39. On page 40, some things that our middle school, junior high has done exceptionally well to prepare the kids for Co-Brown. Again, this is their feedback to us. Math is stated a number of times, science is stated a number of times. So those were social studies a few times. So that's some good feedback to take into consideration. And then on 42 and 43, some things that Co-Brown could have done to help improve the transition. So I know that Co-Brown looks at that and always tries to help ease our kids into the 9th grade and provide them with more assistance. And then on page 44 and 45, some things that the middle school, junior high could have done to better prepare them for Co-Brown. And there's a number of things from homework, increasing the rigor on homework, and you can read the rest of them in there of things that they feel that it's always interesting listening to their feedback, because this is how they're feeling when they go into the 9th grade, and this is what they're experiencing. So the feedback is very interesting to read and try to help them out. So, again, that's just a quick snapshot, but please take some time and read the comments from the kids and the things that they're writing down, because it's interesting and certainly gives us food for thought for moving forward.
What is this, like one from each kid, the comments?
I don't know how they tabulated it, Tim. I think so.
40 of them.
Some people actually wrote their name. By the way, this is so-and-so.
Tim, I think you're right.
Is it one for each kid?
Well, you
Do they
figure
know
40
which kid
kids a
do what?
class.
Oh, we're doing that one.
My school didn't prepare me for anything.
Well, the question was, list 2 things that you think would better prepare you, and if you read, it is one comment from each kid, and they've doubled up on some of them.
I like the Spanish one. It says, taught us how to speak Spanish instead of making piñatas. It's like they want to do work.
Well, another thing that comes up year over year is that we were unprepared for the amount of homework we're going to get in Co-Brown. We see this almost every time we look at one of these surveys, that, it almost seems like they wanted to have some introduction to that in 8th grade, of how
Yeah, but if
important
you
homework was.
ask them now in
Oh, I know,
eighth
I
grade,
know.
then
yeah.
say that.
Seems like a good idea when you're a freshman.
Totally understand that. Do we ever have any Co-Brown students, kind of come back and talk to the 8th graders?
Yep, so actually next week, Dave Smith will be here, and he always brings some kids with him. So he provides some information to the 8th graders, and then the kids do as well, and they have an opportunity to ask questions.
Awesome. All right, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Can I ask a couple of questions on the bills?
That'll be a good time for it, yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering why Tom was the payer on this, and I don't even know what it is. It's like a software subscription upgrade for Viking Controls. It just seemed weird that Tom was the,
Well, depends what Viking is, right?
I think this is our camera system, so it is a maintenance-y thing because they have to use ladders and get up there and change
Okay.
them out.
because
So
then it does say something on here too, something about contacted Northwood IT about remote access and stuff.
Right,
that's
so
what I
yeah,
wasn't
Tom
sure.
and Steve
Okay.
work together on
And
that.
then the preferred signs out of Plastow, is this for our front again?
That was damaged in the windstorm.
Okay, so this
Yeah,
was just
October.
damage from that,
Yep.
okay. All right, thank you. That was it.
Any other questions for the superintendent? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to new business. I do have one thing, if the board is okay with this, I want to bring up, even though it's not on the agenda. I've been talking to Mr. Garnett about the possibility of getting speakers installed in here, so that during our meetings, we can project our voices through the microphones. And he has some equipment and is willing to do it. He gave me a quote. I'll read it out and then hand it out so you guys look at it, but it's to estimate to supply and install 2 wall mount speakers, including wires, brackets, and other associated hardware. Total will be $200. So I guess I'm asking the board if they would like to move forward with that so that we can have projection system in here. And also, it would be contingent on him working with Ms. Young to
I
make
was
sure the
gonna say,
equipment
because
is.
did we ask the librarian and Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Tom?
I have talked with Tom about it.
Okay.
Do you have any concerns with this, or seems fine to you? I mean, is this something maybe that can even be used during instruction time,
Yeah, I'm sure.
I would imagine?
Probably, yeah.
And this would come out of the board's line?
Well, that's a question. I'm not sure where it would come out of. If we were to do this, do we have money in the board's line? We overspend something?
Well, I'm not sure it would come out of the board's line. Ultimately, it would come out of a maintenance line or a new equipment line, and then we would just overextend that line. if
You
we
should
need
take it out of the right line.
Right.
And show that as an overage and somewhere else as an underage.
Yeah. I imagine finding $200 to cover that should not be too much of an
I would
issue.
assume we could cover $200.
Not out of my paycheck.
So I'll make the motion that we, I'll make the motion that we accept this.
And actually, maybe I'll do that.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I just think you should figure out help Gary with how he's going to buy it. Is he going to buy it? Are we going to reimburse him? Or can we run it through the regular school system? Work with Marjorie and run it through the regular way that we would buy stuff like this?
I think he, correct me not if I'm wrong, but I think he has the equipment now.
Oh, all right.
So it's really just installing it and being reimbursed.
So he's going to give us an invoice?
Yeah, I would imagine, right? Invoice?
Yes.
I imagine he will if he needs to.
$1 million, Gary.
And thank you very much, Mr. Guy, for doing this.
Yes, thank
I
you.
appreciate this. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports. Strategic planning, I wasn't at we had a public session. I was unfortunately not there. I don't know if anybody who was there could give a report on that.
That was there.
Want me to start?
Go ahead.
We had a public forum, we talked about the strategic issues, broke into groups, did some brainstorming, and I believe that the plan from here is to put together the first draft of the strategic plan and then reconvene the strategic plan committee and then start roughing in a draft product that we can start bringing forward.
So when we meet in January, I think we will have a draft in front of us to discuss. I think we got some really good feedback on some of our strategic issues. On a couple of them, we got none. So I think it'll be interesting to decide how we deal with those that remain.
Yeah, I think we had 12 to 14 community members there providing feedback and taking part in the group, so that was
Yeah,
nice
some
to...
people focused on multiple issues, and
Right, it was nice to get people involved and hear their feedback.
there's some really, really good conversations going on. I jumped around all the tables and listened. It was really
It was nice.
useful.
All right, thank you. Any other committees meet in the meantime in the past 2 weeks? Budget committee I know is coming right up.
Oh, yeah, we met, but not for the school. We're meeting on Saturday for that.
Oh, for the town.
Yeah, we met last Saturday for the town.
Or there's more warrant articles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know technology committee hasn't met this month, I think, or
Next week.
next week, right. The bus retro, how's that going?
Yeah, we haven't met yet.
Can we try to make that happen?
Maybe after the first of the year, probably not this month.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Get the wheels rolling on that, as they say. Sorry.
The bus, get the wheels rolling, yeah.
All right, on to old business. Lockers.
So we talked with Tom, the quote was for 136 lockers, just because that's what we have up there, so it was just exchanging apples for apples. There is likely some flexibility there, if we wanted to look at not doing as many in the 7-8 hallway and adding some newer ones in the 5-6 hallway. So the only consideration would be if we're taking out a bank of lockers from 7-8, we're gonna wanna make sure that the wall and the floor look decent. There, so, and Tom doesn't think that that would be too much, some floor tiles, some paint. So in the 5-6 hallway, only 6th graders use lockers. 5th graders keep their materials in their classrooms. There's 2 different types of lockers in that hallway. There are some older double stack lockers that had originally been in the 7-8 hallway and were moved over, so those are the older, more dilapidated ones. And then there are some single, taller lockers that are newer and in good shape. Those don't need to be replaced. So if we wanted to update some of the lockers in the 5-6 hallway, we would have a couple choices. I'm a fan of consistency, so I would like all singles. However, if we get bigger class sizes in the next few years, that might result in not having quite enough. Because there's room for about 16 singles. So we could either do the 16 singles and run the risk of not having quite enough at some point, my crystal ball isn't working, or we could replace the double stacks with newer double stacks, similar to what we're putting in the 7 and 8 hallway. I don't have updated figures on what that would do because I wanted direction from the board before I asked the company to run new numbers for us.
How many singles do we have?
36 singles.
And 36, and you said 16?
Yep.
So that's 52.
Right.
And we have no classes coming up that big.
No, but we have lockers that last for 30 years, so
Yeah, are
just
there
not.
is there room if we wanted to expand later with singles?
I would think so.
I mean, if we went with the 16 now.
Yes.
That would give us
Yeah.
52.
Yep.
And in a couple of years, if we had larger classes, could we buy 10 more and put them up there?
I think so. There's room
And that would.
Yes,
past Mrs. Fredette's room.
Yeah, I believe there is on actually both sides.
Yep. So
I
yes,
mean,
we
that
could
would
do
be
that.
the way I would want to go with. I like her idea of consistency in that. So come back down to the amount we need. What were the amounts we could, in the other hallway? So do we have to buy them in 16s or what?
It's not clear in the quote, I didn't ask that particular question, but Tom thinks they probably come in banks of 10.
10, okay. And
You're doing 10 singles.
10 double
10 doubles,
stacks,
okay.
yeah.
so when we, based on what we know now, we needed, was it like 100?
Yeah, I mean, I think 100 would be advisable, yes, just in case we get any
And the bid was for how many?
136.
Yeah.
Well, if it's some that don't work, yeah.
So my preference, I think we should go with 100 new ones in the one, and get the 16 tall ones in the other, and then if we need more in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, whoever's here could buy them.
So the 16 would fit in the same spot, though, that the double stacks, the old double stacks are.
I think, yes. I don't know that for absolutely certain, but
Yeah,
it might not be
pretty
exact,
comparable.
but it should fit, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at our enrollment report, and right now it looks like the 5th and, so the 7th and 8th graders, there'll be 100 lockers between them? Is that what I'm hearing? So right now, the 5th and 6th grade has 47 each. So that leaves us only 6 free lockers, you know, and this is going to be, what, 2 years from now when they're both up there at the same time. I'm just wondering if 100 is cutting it a little tight, if some people move into the district.
So go 110. I mean,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
say-
something like that, yeah.
I just don't see putting a whole lot more than students that it looks like we're gonna have. I've not read or heard of anyone saying that, except your husband, that populations of students in Northwood or the state are gonna increase. That's just not
Not
what.
that drastically.
That's
I
not
heard
what it
someone
shows.
today saying that that the seacoast is increasing, and as I,
Oh, yes,
close
there
to the
are
seacoast, we
areas,
might be
yes.
affected by
There
that as
are
well.
areas because it's so expensive to live in Massachusetts, but, I mean, not very many people are gonna travel from Northwood to Boston.
So,
I'd say 110.
so 100,
16.
110 new 7th, 8th grade lockers, and what for the,
16?
and then 16, replacing 16
Singles.
singles for 6th grade.
If they come in banks of 10, are we gonna have to go 120?
Well, I think what we should do is
10.
ask for 110-ish for the request,
Yeah, I mean,
and then
if
talk
we-
to them and figure it out. If it comes out to 115 or 120, we'll
Could
deal
get
with that.
136, then clearly they don't come in banks of 10, so I take that back.
Good
So
point, right.
we'll ask.
Ah, nice investigation.
12, yeah. Yep.
But yes, so I will, I'll talk with Tom tomorrow and we'll get an updated quote. There is a little bit of time sensitivity on this because if we go past, I think, February 1st before we commit, then the price goes up. So I will get on that with him ASAP.
Okay. Everybody clear on what's happening going forward here? Especially you. Yes. Okay.
Price goes up, was there supply and demand for lockers?
Tons of them. They're like hotcakes.
Okay, next up is the front steps discussion. Do we have any new information about that? Or it's just kind of a discussion about,
I guess
What are we
just-
gonna do?
I guess just clarification, did we decide last time that we wanted to take that out of the budget? This year's budget, or was that out of the,
I thought that was out of the budget and.
well, it's out of the
We
proposed
want-
out of the
budget.
proposed budget?
Yeah, and
Are you
the,
talking about taking it out of this year's budget, or are you talking about taking it out of the capital reserve, or?
I felt we were talking about taking it out of capital reserve.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. I've taken the $8,600 for the front steps and the back steps, and I've applied for the public infrastructure fund. There's a sum of money, I think it's $20 million that the state had for surplus, that they're earmarking for public entities for health and safety. I've wrapped that up into health and safety and submitted that, so we'll see where that goes. I sent that in, when did I send that in? Earlier this week, I think. So we'll see if they approve that for the $8,600. They may not do the whole thing, but they might do a matching. So even if they do a matching, we'll be ahead of the ballgame.
And we weren't gonna do that until the spring anyways, right, because of the concrete?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
We were gonna do that. You know, I feel that we should give the guy the job. We have to pay him half.
For
And
the spring.
get a date in the spring so that we kind of tie him up. That's what I think we should be done. Because when you get to spring, all these jobs come into these guys, and, you know, we just need our name on the board. Speaking of money from the state, I was part of a budget conference in Concord a couple of weekends ago, and we had two ladies from DRA that did a wonderful job. And one of the things that they mentioned over and over again was the amount of monies around within the state. And they kept saying over and over how surprised we would be at how little people know about it and apply for them. One of those that they mentioned was third grade reading below proficiency. So if we have X amount of third graders who are below proficiency in reading, we can apply for a grant that's just automatically given. I believe it's close to $700 per student. I'm wondering if we've ever done that.
I think that's included in the adequacy grant
Now,
already.
this is separate. It was very specific to third grade only.
No, I know, but in the adequacy grant, there's a formula in there
Yeah.
that does make mention of third grade reading
I'm just
proficiency.
asking if we
And
apply
that's-
Who are you
for-
talking to, Tim, and I can get the details?
Oh, I could get to the two ladies' names. I don't have it with me.
Yeah, if you could, now,
This is third grade reading, only third grade reading.
because I know part of the formula for adequacy, there is in there, but this might be something
Yeah, if it's
separate.
something different, then,
This was, and they had a figure, and it was like $673 per student who are below.
If you can get their names, I'll check it out.
I will.
Something we just had was, that
Yours, your,
yeah, because that's almost the same number I remember seeing for adequacy grant money too, so I think it might be the same. Mr. Rooney?
I believe, do you remember the handout from the New Hampshire School Boards Association that Tim brought? I brought copies for everyone. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
The information on the change for third grade reading proficiency, I believe, is in that handout. I can double check.
Yeah, that's where I got that information.
Is that where you got that?
And that's
Yeah.
where that's why it sounds the same, is because that's where they get that.
It may be.
I know that's
I
part of the
just-
formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just, I wrote down a list of them, but I mean, there's actually building money and some other stuff. It's not the big amounts that we were used to in the past. But, you know, they were saying that they're constantly surprised at how many school districts say we're not getting enough, but yet they don't apply for things that are in fact available. And it's just a matter of, in many cases, I said, it's just a matter of applying. You apply, you get it. You know, so, I mean, if we had 20 third graders below proficiency, that's, I think, $14,000.
Be glad to check it out.
I'll get the names.
Can we add, so there's a next step for the steps, would be to get a,
You're right on tonight.
I know, right? It just is working its way up,
And so proud of himself, too.
is to get an estimate, right? Is that
No,
what
I
we're
thought we
doing
had
next?
the
You have an
estimate.
Have the estimate, so are
Yeah,
we,
we
so
have
we're,
that.
so we're really just gonna, so now,
We kind of chose which of the estimates or whatever I
Yeah,
think we
we're-
liked and everything.
okay, so,
Just a timing of
We'll
when
try
to
to
do
set
it.
a time for them to do it.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
so-
we chose all that and.
Set a date. I got it written down.
okay. You wanna put that on the parking lot, or you're good with that?
I'll put it on there.
Okay, thanks. Transportation contract. Those were the transportation contract in our
Yep,
packet?
at the last, one of the last meetings, you approved the bid proposal. This is the contract, so if you would like to look through the contract, and if it's sufficient, approve the contract, and we will be ready to go.
I move to approve the contract from Northwood School District transportation contract. Sorry. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got a question. How are we on that 6 bus driver? Is that about time?
No.
No, a couple more weeks or
We
so?
we were hoping that it was December 1st. That got postponed. I'm hearing that the next date is December 11th. Possibility of getting that sixth driver to pass. Now, after that sixth driver passes, there's going to be an acclimation period, but December 11th is the next date we're looking at.
Sorry, December 11th is what?
For the sixth driver.
Is when he would pass his test?
When
Or
he would take his
When he would
test.
take the test.
Take the test,
yes.
okay. When he will pass the test, right?
Yes.
May I ask a clarifying question? On page 48, it says our end time is 2 o'clock. That is not correct.
Your end time is 2:15.
15.
2:15.
Anything else in there?
Cole Brown ends at 2:34.
Very
Very
specific.
specific. Yeah.
Yes. I'd just like it noted in the minutes that it is a 3-year contract. And that there is a bond. And that we made sure that there was a bond.
I think we get the point.
They're bonded. Not that it would have done us any good, but they're bonded.
Okay, moving on to the parking lot. We have the tractor and the CIP.
Bond is funny.
Competency presentation in January, we're still on track for that. I assume.
Say that again?
The competency presentation? That's you, okay. We're still on track for that? That's okay. And the school board newsletter, which is an ongoing non-issue, non-item, unfortunately. If anybody has any ideas or has any suggestions on what to write for that, please let me know. I'd be happy to include it in something. I just haven't done it myself. Mr. Wells, you're part of the communication committee.
Yes,
We should sit down and do that.
we should.
And we will be reminded every meeting until that happens.
Yes.
All right, school board timeline, I believe in December is merely budget.
Budget.
And then we'll start preparing for deliberative session.
The superintendent was done, I had a question for him.
Yeah, I think we're all set, sure, go for it.
What happened to the accident in Small Claims Court?
There was a judgment on our behalf, and they are in the process of rendering that as a decision. There was a form for, the judgment was on our behalf, and they couldn't finalize that, and because we had to send back it's a form to basically say, to the best of our knowledge, the person isn't in the military and deployed overseas. So I filled that out and sent that
Yeah,
back
I've
in,
seen
so
those, yeah.
now I'm just waiting for the final judgment.
Cool, thank you.
All right, so any future agenda items? Right now I have that maybe we'll have a estimate for lockers by then.
Hope so.
So, my contact about steps, we'll be hearing about back from that.
Yep.
Anything else that you've noted that I'm not thinking of right now? Nope.
Got nothing additional on my list.
There's one other.
Can I bring up something I actually probably should have brought up during the budget thing, but I forgot about it at that point? That, because I'm the school board rep for the budget committee,
Yep.
when we were talking about the town's budget last Saturday, I noted, and I made sure that I asked Sandy, I don't know, what is
Town finance manager.
the finance manager, and she has a quote for her heating oil, and I made sure that I asked that the additive was asked, and it's 2.123, $2.123 for the, per gallon for the heating oil. And I said, are you sure? Because I said ours
The Homer
was,
business.
Right. Is that residential?
Is that for now?
that's heating oil for the town.
But are they quoting it for the, I think it's for the present.
No, this is for their 2018,
Which starts in January.
It starts in January, then.
right.
Like a year ahead of us.
See,
So-
that's one of the issues that we found, is the town locks in as now for January, and we're trying to lock in now for next winter. So
Right.
that's why they're not, I mean, we checked back and they haven't given it to us yet, so if we can do it at 2.1.
Well, what I'm wondering though is, and I talked to Sandy a little bit, and again, I don't know what the whole thing is, and Sandy said she would email her price to Marjorie.
Yep.
But Sandy said, why couldn't the town add our tank onto theirs? And so then they're adding 2,200 gallons to this 1,200, which is a bigger
I
amount.
think the last time we discussed this was because we had different additives, was what I remember hearing, that were needed for.
It's a year difference.
I don't know if it was a different additive, because the fire station said they add their own additive. That's what the fire chief said, but
The
There's
biggest
kerosene, though.
problem we've had was just
it's
the
not
budget
just
cycle.
kerosene at the
It's
fire
a year
station
high.
though.
It's just the budget cycle that's been the big deal for us. Because even if we add our tanks together, they're purchasing oil and locking in for the winter of 18, and we're locking in for the winter of 19.
I'm not sure what the timeline is also for the shift to the low sulfur heating oil and when that's required, which is why.
That's
we
one of
can't
the
get a-
issues.
Which is why we can't get a price for
Do you
next
know-
year yet.
Do you know who they locked in with?
Irving. They've been with Irving for the last, I don't know if she said 3 or 5 years. She said instead of putting it out to bid, what she does is she calls around and gets like 3 quotes from different places.
Okay.
We'll check again with Irving and Rhymes. I mean, we've done that to date, and Linda's been, I ask her once a week on that, and we haven't gotten it yet, so.
Deerfield says they have a lock-in price from Rhymes.
For next year.
Yes.
We'll find out. We haven't gotten it yet.
It's just, that's like 40 cents a gallon. It's a, you know, big
Yeah,
difference,
definitely
so,
worth looking into at least.
yeah. I mean, if we can save the taxpayers money by doing anything.
We'll get on and call again and see what we can do.
I wonder I still just kind of wonder though too, if we could present it in a way to say Irving, if the town's been with them for 5 years or whatever, if they say to them, we're going to add the school on, but they need this or something like that, or I don't know. It's just if you have more gallons that you're doing, usually they'll give you that better price or something, you know? So,
I mean, I wonder if it's possible we could break it up into 2 different contracts too. Like if we can glom onto them for the half of the year
Yeah.
that they're in service, right? And then for the second half, we could have a different, our own contract or glom onto their next year contract or something like that. Perhaps.
Do you want another name, or you got enough?
No, you got another name?
I'll get it for you in the morning. Russ, a couple of weeks ago, at Yavna, so he runs Yavna, and he said he got a tremendous price from, we use a bit of oil in the kitchen area, and he got a really good price. Somebody on the coast, and I'll get it. I'll call it in. the
For
morning.
now or for later?
For this next year.
Okay.
but not 2019, it's 18, it's
It
2018.
was a company that I don't know, and he was supposed to send me something.
It's not a small, is it?
I don't know. I'll
That
get it
always
for
makes me
you.
nervous. After Fred Fuller.
Yeah, right. Okay, so anyone else have anything else for the agenda for our next meeting on the 21st? I'd like to add a reconsideration of the date we chose for our deliberative session. I've had a few people talk to me about doing a Monday night being difficult for people in town to get to. And I don't know, Thursday night might work just as well, so I'll just put it on the agenda. We can talk about it, something to think about between now and then.
When is it scheduled for currently?
The 5th, which is Monday, February 5th.
No one's gonna go to work on the 5th anyways, it's the day after the Super Bowl. Be all ready to go.
That's why I prefer it on the 5th. I have them off now.
Super Bowl's on the 5th?
It's on Sunday, the 4th, but no one goes to work on the 5th because
All the more reason
I
maybe to
still
not
have
have a
to go to
deliberative
work.
session there.
I have no say.
bed. Halftime, that's it.
Tape it. Someone else does.
Yeah, don't get any ideas.
Anybody else has any agenda items they'd like to add? Let me know 7 days before, please. Future meetings, this Saturday, December 9th at 9 AM, we'll be presenting to the Budget Committee, or with the Budget Committee, at Town Hall. We have a joint board meeting on December 18th. Note that got moved up a week from the usual time. Our next regular board meeting is December 21st, and after that, January 4th. Closing public comment.
I was sorely disappointed in Bree and Tim's decision to not support the school board's 2018-2019 operating budget, especially as I heard this evening, no objections were raised while working on it. Full-time kindergarten and the curriculum director are now established, and Northwood is now part of the majority of districts in the state providing full-time kindergarten. In hearing Bree's letter tonight explaining her no vote for this budget, that because for a few years prior to last year, voters have said no to these two items, therefore she could not vote for a budget that included them. In my opinion, this is very short-sighted. Do I understand you correctly that you would rather delete these improvements to our students' education than approve a budget? Time passes, people can change their opinions. I voted no when these items were first presented as petition warrant articles, and the reason I voted no was because the school board did not indicate that they supported them. If the petitioned articles passed, we would be raising money that would not be utilized. Taxes would go up needlessly. That's why I voted no, and I don't believe I'm the only person in town that voted no for that reason. I believe I'm one of the many who voted for the items once they were placed in the budget because that showed that the school board was behind the ideas. They wanted to improve curriculum for the students in this town, and I could stand and support that. It's time to move on and concentrate and support continued improvement in our curriculum. Not sit back and say because something a few years ago, many people in town, for a variety of reasons that you have no idea what they may be, said no to petitioned articles. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any board members like to speak now?
Yes, I would. A couple of things. Number one, a few years ago was a matter of a few months ago, in March 14th, I think, of this year. And 73% of the town said no to the full-time curriculum director. So, facts are twisted constantly. I wanted to let you know that, knowing how the three of you like to slither around in the dark, I won't be at the next meeting.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Motion to adjourn.
No, we're not done the public comment session yet. Any other board members wish to speak?
Yeah, I just want to talk about how, how do I want to put it? My legacy or whatever here at the school board is not what I do this year. It's not what I did last year. It's not what I'll do next year, right? It's 5 years from now, right? People are going to look and say, what I did helped improve the school because my scores are not going to improve the school next year. It might a little, right? People that were on the board 10 years ago or 7 years ago, 5 years ago, and as the school continues to go an upward level, that's when you get evaluated. All right, and I'm so sick and tired of everybody's talking about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we screwed up. That's the past. No one's ever thinking about where we want to be in 5 years. We are, because we want the strategic plan, we want all that. But everybody's always complaining what happened in the past. Stop. It's not. It's over with. We got to start moving forward. That's all I got to say.
Thanks. Anyone else? No? Yes?
Just like to say, I respect Ginger's opinion. I respect your opinion. I respect your you're right to disagree with me, and I respect the fact that you can be disappointed in a vote that I take. But I think that you cross a line when you call someone ridiculous for disagreeing with something the way that you do it. I think that you do a good job as chair. Generally, you keep it under control, you keep us under control. I think you're even-tempered, and I think that you're intelligent, and you do a good job, but I think that that was unnecessary, so that's it.
Okay, thanks. Nope, I'm good. All right, we'll close public session. We will now entertain motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
8:04.